Good evening, everyone. I hope that the topic is going to be pretty interesting. Something I came across myself around 6 months ago. It's a concept by Dan Sullivan. He's the leader of strategic coach. He's based in Canada, but some of his work is really, really good. But it's basically a very, very simple concept of how we look at our progress. And it's not just applying to your Juice Plus business. It's applying to any goal or any challenge or anything you really want to do in life. So I got a couple of slides here I'm going to pop up, and I'm just going to run through them pretty quickly. And if anyone has any questions, pop them into the chat box there, and we'll see can we'll attempt to answer them when we're coming to the end of it. So just click this up here. Okay. So I suppose the first question I'd say to people is, if I can go back, sorry now, is 2018. Has it been a success so far? How do you know if it's a success? Have you defined your success for 2018? Have you even made out small, simple goals for 2018? Personal life, business, sport, health, whatever. Have you actually measured out your goals for 2018? I suppose I'd ask, just write, if you have a pen and paper, just write down before we start here how you actually measure your goals, or do you actually measure your goals? So write down, how do I measure my success for 2018? It's a very simple question. Just say, how do I measure my success for 2018? And hopefully by the end of these couple of slides, you'll have a better understanding of what I'm talking about here. So first couple of questions when you're looking at 2018, was there actually a goal? There may or may not have been a goal. You know, you might just been happy to breeze through the year. That's fine as well. And if you did have a goal, was it written down? And if it was wrote down, how often has it been reviewed? Really important. So do you review it weekly, daily, monthly, every 6 months? Is the goal actually on track? It's a very simple one. So if you had a particular thing you wanted to do, or if you wanted to lose 6 pounds, gain 6 pounds, or whatever, are you on track? Then ask yourself, was it genuinely achievable? Like, did you genuinely believe that you could achieve your goal? Or was it just something you just jotted down a sheet of paper at the start of the year and said, yeah, I'll do that? And how will you know specifically that it has been achieved? That's a really, really important question. Because if you say, you know, I want to get healthier, or I want to be financially free, or I want to whatever, but that's very, very broad. How will you know specifically that you have achieved whatever goal you want to achieve? Just an important point to note when you're setting goals. So when all that is done, I can send this out after. This is a very simple way. If I can bring this up. I know slides are firing by here. Okay, yeah, okay. So how your mind actually works. So this is just a very simple way of looking at it. So when you start out your year, so just take 2018, and you want to achieve whatever you want to achieve, and here's your actual goal. So it's up there in front of you, and you're aiming for that goal. This is actually how it works. When you're setting that goal, it's important to think of something that'll be ideal, something that you'd actually really love to achieve, but you don't know actually how to achieve it. And it's something, all your ideal scenario is, it's just a thought in your actual head. So when you're actually trying to set this goal, you visualize the ideal scenario, and you might say, do you know what? I'd love to be financially free by, the end of 2018. It would be absolutely wonderful. But you know what? That's probably not actually possible. So maybe if I have 50 grand in the bank by the end of 2018, that could be your goal. So you always stretch really wide when you're looking at the ideal, and you visualize something absolutely huge, and then you bring back to what's an achievable goal to what I want to achieve. So that's a simple, very simple scenario, how our mind works when we're actually setting a goal. Now, when we come back to the actual, when Eddie spoke about the gap in the gain, when we actually measure at the end of the year, and this is a very important point. So when you're there at the end of the year, and take for instance here, your goal was just to earn 10,000 euros. And if during the year you actually earned 12,000 euros, but your ideal scenario was to earn 20,000 euros. So your ideal scenario, everything went absolutely brilliantly and swimmingly. You were visualizing that 20,000 euros, but you actually set your goal at 10,000 euros. And that was your goal to start of the year. But too many of us, myself included, if I did 12,000 euros, I'd measure my success by what my ideal was of 20 grand and what my goal was 10 grand. Even though I hit 12 grand, I'd still measure my success. And I'd say to myself, do you know what? I didn't really achieve my 20 grand goal. And what that does, it actually demoralizes. So that means you're actually living here in the gap. Even though you did hit your goal of 10 grand, you actually hit 12. You by hitting 12 grand, you actually hit your 10 grand goal, but you're measuring here. And that's us living in the gap. So when you're actually going after your ideal, it's the inspiration that allows you to set the goal. And I mentioned that earlier. So next slide is going to make you clarify this. Sorry, no. Bring it back. Okay. So this actually is the main slide of the day. So on the left-hand side here, we're starting out to hit our goal. So our goal might be, let's say, 10,000 here. But ideally, we might like to hit 20,000. I'm just repeating it here. This is very, very important. We're measuring here. This is where you shouldn't be. We measure the gap. So your goal is 10, the ideal is 20, and actually hit 12 grand. I'm measuring here. I'm saying, geez, you know what? I really should have hit 20. So you're actually deflating yourself. And that's how the brain works. And that's us living in the gap. The opposite is over here. We still start out in 2018. Our goal is 10,000. And we visualize, yeah, in an ideal scenario, we might hit 20 grand. Now, if I still hit 12 grand, I'm measuring here. This is where I'm measuring. And I'm measuring the gain from the start of the year to the goal. And I hit my 10 grand. And that's where you should measure. So this is where you started out, and this is where you finished. And that's measuring the gain. So let's repeat that again. What you're looking for to measure is between what you started out with to your goal. That's what you're measuring. Even if you didn't hit your goal and you did 7,000, well, that's a positive. It's better than nothing, which you hit, at the start of the year. So this is where you measure, but this is where a lot of people measure. And this mightn't be around money. This might be about losing weight. This might be about getting fitter. When we are actually involved in the whole process, our targets change and we get a little bit maybe greedy or whatever. And we measure our success by in here in the gap rather than the gain is where we need to work with. Now, this works with entrepreneurs, high-end entrepreneurs and businesses. And some businesses, they'll come along and they'll measure here. And what that does, this gives us very simply, this is the challenge with this process. If we live in the gap, it's going to bring up all these emotions. Failure, frustration, disappointment, low self-esteem. I've seen this with top CEOs and businesses, and they have incredibly low self-esteem because they're living here in the gap. Guilt, depression, these are all the emotions that are driven. Now, if you're trying to drive a business or be successful or hit any goal, and these are the emotions that are driving around inside in your head, you ain't going to hit them. You're not going to be motivated to hit them. And if you're living here inside in the gap, it's extremely frustrating to achieve your goals. Also, I've seen scenarios here where some business owners go on the outside. Just take, for instance, if I was looking at Eddie, I might use you as a case study here for a moment. You might look on the outside and say, you know, Eddie, he's an NMD in the business. He's highly successful. And we might say, you know, wouldn't it be absolutely fantastic? Whereas Eddie might say, I really want to be a PMD. I'm absolutely not happy here inside an NMD. So Eddie might be living inside in the gap here, even though from the outside we might think it's absolutely brilliant. Eddie has it made. But if Eddie's living in the gap here, he's not happy. And he's going to be having all these emotions. And what's the point in having been an NMD if you have all these emotions? So it's about life. It's about achieving a goal. It can be used in any capacity. The illustration that Dan Sullivan uses is, he mentioned a guy that had over 22 million in his bank account. And he said he was living here inside in the gap. And he was totally unhappy with his life. And he worked with Dan Sullivan and he flipped with the very same amount inside an account. And he's living now in the game. And he's the very same scenario. But now he has this feeling: success, satisfaction, confidence, high self-esteem, enjoyment, and optimism. And it's the very same situation he finds himself in. However, he's now measuring his success by the difference between the start and the goal. Now, I went through that quite quickly, but it's a very, very simple concept when you take the time to analyze it. So what I'm suggesting here is, I'll go back to the original slide here. You measure your success from where you started out to where you are right now. And that's a gain, rather than where you'd ideally like to be. Okay. Now, the suggestion here around this is that you look for 3 wins today and tomorrow. And those 3 wins could be in absolutely anything. They could be having a nice cup of coffee with somebody. It might be going for a morning walk. It might be making that phone call that you were meant to do or you procrastinated about. But 3 small wins of the day. And you record those 3 wins. And I'll tell you later on maybe how you can do that. So if we bring this back to the Juice Plus franchise and we put this whole methodology around this and this whole concept around it, right? If you ask yourself, no matter if you're in the business 1 year, 1 month, 10 years, 20 years, and if you find yourself that you're living in the gap and you're extremely frustrated and slightly demotivated and the old self-esteem is a bit low around your business, ask yourself, where did I start? I started with no customer. I started with no franchisee. I started with absolutely no knowledge of the business. No knowledge of network marketing. Absolutely zero. So that's your starting point. What skills do I have now? And maybe do a little bit of an audit of what skills you've developed over the last month, 2 months, 3 months, 5 years, 10 years. But you've developed a set of skills that are applicable to this business. What ambitions do I have? So go back, realign yourself. What ambitions do I have? What's the ideal scenario here? And then what goals are you going to put around that ideal scenario? So put small, simple, very simple. We've all heard this before. Like, I'm not telling you anything new here around goals. Put a goal in around that ideal scenario. And I suppose then the very small thing is, what small steps do I need to do or do I need to take to ensure my goal and not my ideal? So you're going after the goal, not the ideal. The ideal really is it's like the horizon out in front of you. You'll never reach it. Actually, Dave O'Brien says in one of his talks, he was doing one of the desert marathon runs, and he said he kept on walking. There was this thing in the front of him. He was looking ahead, and he was seeing this an area where there's like a water station, and he was still walking 2 hours later, and it still looked as if it was going further and further and further away from it. And that's like your ideal scenario. If you keep on trying to strive for that, you'll never actually get there. It's just an ideal scenario that keeps on moving. It never actually stays in the one position. So the closer you get, it pushes on again. So, but you will, if you do set a goal, you will reach your goal. So it's a very simple scenario. So I suppose my advice or I'm trying out to people here is, rather than living in the gap, being demotivated, frustrated, low self-esteem, not liking what you do, not liking yourself, conversely, you can live actually in the game, which is, I'll bring it back to this slide here. So the choice is ours, and this you can apply to daily life. I actually was working with someone there about 3 weeks ago, a teenager, and I showed him this concept. And I asked him a simple question, where are you living? And he was like, he pointed straight at the gap. And I said, look, do you want to continue to live here or do you want to live here? I spoke to him on Wednesday in conversation, and he said his whole mindset has changed to being inside here, even though his situation is the same. He's in the situation he can't control at the moment. He's in it, is the very same. However, he's now living inside here in the game. And his mindset has totally changed. And what that has done, his confidence has gone up, his self-esteem is going up, he's much happier in what he's doing, his sense of satisfaction is happier, and he has a better idea of what success is to him. And we can apply that to ourselves in any walk of life. And I suppose I just tied it in there at the very end around your Juice Plus franchise. But you can apply it to any goal that you're actually trying to achieve. I've used it myself. I've used it in a different way. I've actually gone into I was achieving a particular goal, a very small goal there recently. And I said, you know what? I'm going to live in the gap here now for a couple of days. And what was frightening was all these emotions here started to come back in, and they started to play over in other parts of my life. So immediately I shut it down. So it's frightening how you can change either positive or negatively. So to me, I would ask yourself, if you are getting frustrated with your business or frustrated with some area around the goal, right? Ask yourself, how are you measuring your success? Are you measuring it by the gap, or are you measuring it by the game? So that's it, Eddie, in a nutshell. I hope I didn't bore people. I hope the concept is quite simple. If anyone has any questions, pop in, I'll try and answer them. But I hope there's a benefit.